Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Behind the Slate Presents. Give it up. Give it up. Make some noise. That's your cue. That's your cue. I would tell you my name, but if you knew my name, I don't think you'd sleep so well tonight. First things first, I'm so happy that you all came out on this fabulous Thursday evening. We have got a great night of cinema ahead, but the first thing we got to do is we got to take the best eyes wide shut audience selfie ever. I need everybody to get your masks on. Please, please get your masks on. And we are going to take this photo. Blair, if you would, please.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Scientology. Oh, that was too weak. All right. Here we go.
Beautiful, beautiful. Give it up for Blair, everybody, the fabulous Blair Mars. If you have not spoken to her yet, she will be in the lobby after the show. She would love to hear what you think about this fabulous movie. So before I get into the nitty-gritty of it, I do have a special announcement. I am going to take my mask off. Shocking reveal, shocking reveal. As some of you may know, I don't just talk about movies, but I also make them. My debut feature film, Withdrawal, was shot here in Athens, Georgia. It premiered at the Atlanta Film Festival back in April, and then in August, it came to the Athens Film Festival where it won the prize for Best Narrative Feature. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. It feels a little braggy, but also I'm an independent artist, and if I don't do it, ain't nobody else going to do it for me. So, but the exciting news is that Withdrawal is going to be coming back here to Cine. It's going to be playing here for an entire week in February, from February 6th through the 12th, and I need all of y'all to be there. It is a fabulous film. I know you're going to love it. If you love Athens, and if you love cinema, and you believe in a future of sustainable cinema for filmmakers here in Athens, Georgia, you have got to come out. So please put it down on your calendar, February 6th through the 12th, Withdrawal here at Cine. And you can follow it at Withdrawal Film for all the news and announcements. Now, speaking of great nights of cinema, Behind the Slate podcast, we here every month. And I don't know if you've never been to our podcast show before, the way this works is we program the greatest films ever made from all over the world. I get up, I give a little historical context, and then after the film, for those who can stick around, I invite you to stay for an audience discussion. Now, why do we do it in this way? 2 reasons. Number 1, film history matters. It's not because we're a bunch of nerds. I mean, we are, but it's not because we're nerds. It's not because we think we're smarter than everybody else. It's because context equals accessibility. The mission of this show is about lowering the barriers to access for the greatest movies ever made. And that means access, not just that these films are played on a big screen, but that the information necessary so that anybody could walk in off the street and come into this movie and understand it and appreciate it. That is the type of accessibility that we are trying to enable here. It's important for the future of cinema. Now, the second part, the audience discussion, this is where I get a lot of eye rolls. It's like, oh, you guys think you're so smart, just sitting around, just listening to the sound of your own voices, smelling your own farts. That's not why we do it. Guys, for 125 years of movie going, cinemas have historically been third spaces, places to gather with your friends and family, places to meet somebody. It is so easy meeting somebody at the movies. You literally have an instant icebreaker. All you have to do is ask, what'd you think of the movie? But this simple pleasure is at risk right now. And it's not just because of streaming. It's also because of all these chain cineplexes, which have the inviting ambiance of an interstate Hardee's at worst, and at best have the inviting presence of a hotel bar at a Holiday Inn Express by the airport. You know what I'm saying? So we are trying to fight. Thank you. Yes. So we are trying to correct that by engaging in conversations, fostering these conversations so that we can return cinema to the third space that it rightfully is. Okay, that's my little speech. Now, tonight we are here to watch Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut, the brand new 4K restoration. And for those of you who don't live on r/Criterion, the story behind this is that when Warner Brothers put this movie out in 2004 for its initial home video release, they totally fucked up the color. for lack of a better word. They pushed the orange, they decreased the contrast, they decreased the saturation, they added this artificial haze. It looked like shit. Now, if this was any movie that was colored by some studio schmuck, it doesn't really matter. But Stanley Kubrick did the color correction personally on all of his films. So to fuck with that color, you fucking with the GOAT. And that is not cool. So finally, Criterion did a brand new 35 millimeter scan, and we were very fortunate that they released the new 4K literally this month, and we were able to get a copy, and it's my first time seeing it on the big screen tonight. And so I hope you all enjoy that. Now, we didn't come here just to talk about color correction, did we? No. We came here because Eyes Wide Shut is a crazy movie. And we really struggled with how to frame this, because Eyes Wide Shut is such a crazy movie that it's actually two movies. There's the movie that we're going to watch, and then there's the movie that exists in the public imagination. You know what I'm talking about. I'm going to read some common claims about Eyes Wide Shut, and I'm just curious, can you please raise your hand if you, at the very minimum, you have heard this before? Okay, number one, Stanley Kubrick was a genius with an IQ over 200. Has anyone heard this before? Yeah, a few people, okay. Stanley Kubrick was a recluse. Has anyone heard this? Yeah, a few more, okay. Stanley Kubrick abused his actors on set and drove Shelley Duvall insane. Okay, yes. Well, very popular. Stanley Kubrick filled his movies with secret symbols to be decoded. Has anyone ever heard this? Stanley Kubrick died 4 months prior to the release of this film under suspicious circumstances. Okay. Stanley Kubrick faked the moon landing. Stanley Kubrick worked for the CIA. Stanley Kubrick had sex with John F. Kennedy on 9/11. Same. Big if true. Listen, the misinformation about Kubrick is so rampant that literally Roger Avary, Quentin Tarantino's homeboy, the co-writer of Pulp Fiction, who has an Academy Award, went on the Joe Rogan podcast last year, claimed to have the original shooting script of Eyes Wide Shut, and claimed that his original shooting script had 20 pages of voiceover that exposed the true plot of this movie, which is about exposing a secret pedophile cult a la QAnon, and that Kubrick was murdered and the film was recut to hide the truth. That was last year. And that is total bullshit. Yo, Roger Avary, if you own this script, fucking post it, dog. Take a selfie, you coward. Otherwise, you just sound like a fucking child bragging about your super hot girlfriend, but she totally goes to another school, so you probably can't meet her. There is so much misinformation out here. So let's go back to the beginning and give a little refresher as to the real person that we're actually dealing with. Kubrick was born in 1928. He was born in New York City. His parents were both Jewish. His dad was a physician, a pretty well-to-do physician, in fact. And that is definitely something that Kubrick is poking fun at throughout this movie. The lead character, Bill, is a bourgeois, very bougie doctor, and he is very proud of that fact. He will repeat it throughout this movie. Kubrick, maybe he was a genius. The truth is his grades were so terrible in high school he could not even get into college. Luckily, a passion in photography allowed him to get a job at Look magazine as a photographer. He eventually fell in love with cinema. He started off in the early 50s. He self-funded his first two features. He raised the equivalent of, in today's money, $1.5 million to make his first two feature films, both of which were commercial and critical failures. I can't emphasize this enough. At his core, Stanley Kubrick is an indie filmmaker. Those two experiences shaped his entire perspective of this industry and the way he approached films. And that is the guiding light, rather than any myth-making around Kubrick, that guided him throughout his entire career. Now, it was his third film, The Killing, which allowed his career to take off. He was then hired to do Paths of Glory. Kirk Douglas enjoyed working with him on Paths of Glory so much that he had Kubrick replace Anthony Mann for Spartacus, which was Kubrick's big-budget sort of arrival. Now, as soon as Spartacus comes out, 1961, Kubrick makes a very daring decision. He was married to his wife, Christiane, who he would remain married for the rest of his life. He had two young daughters and a stepdaughter, and he hated working in Hollywood. So he figured, I have got to go somewhere where I can still make high-quality films, but far enough away that the studios can't meddle with me. So he relocated his family to the suburbs of London. This was an incredible gamble that paid off. And for the next 40 years, he was able to make the most commercially successful experimental films ever made. And he was able to do it with studio financing, but completely independently. Almost nobody has been able to achieve what he did from a structural career perspective, which is just absolutely incredible. One of the things that is the least appreciated about Kubrick is that he didn't just write, direct, and edit his films. He was involved in all aspects of the filmmaking. He was involved in the production design, in the costume design. He processed the film stock himself. Once the movie was done, he wasn't over. He tailored the marketing campaigns. He coordinated the distribution releases. He made sure that every theater was up to par with the standards of the film, and he did it all from the comfort of his home in London. Now look, a lot of people will take that information and say, oh, Kubrick was this control freak. But I gotta be honest, we're here in Athens, Georgia. I think Stanley Kubrick's a lot like Kirby Smart. I really, really do. Now, there's a lot of players that they can't play for Kirby Smart. There's a lot of people that they don't want to work for Kirby Smart. But the ones that do and the ones that get it, they are going to have an incredible experience. They're going to love him, and they are going to achieve something incredible, and that is all a credit to the vision and the focus of the person in charge. Now, Eyes Wide Shut, it was his final film. He did die before this movie was released. It's an adaptation of a 1926 novel by a Jewish-Austrian author named Arthur Schnitzler. Sorry, that was like a mouthful. Jewish-Austrian author Arthur Schnitzler. And it's called Traum Novelle. Now, this is a very faithful adaptation of the book. So all the crazy sort of like mass cults or whatever, that's all from the book. Very few things were changed for this movie. It's something that Kubrick had been wanting to do for almost 4 decades. He is quoted in 1961 saying of Schnitzler, quote, "It's difficult to find any writer who understood the human soul more truly and who had a more profound insight into the way people think, act, and really are." He was thinking about Schnitzler for a long time. Now, with starring Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, who of course were married at the time, production began on this movie in 1996, and it would go on to claim the world record for the longest continuous feature film, or studio film, I should say, movie shoot at 400 days of principal photography. Now that is an incredible achievement. That statistic is often used to explain that Kubrick was in fact a sadist. Kubrick was he was such a perfectionist, and he liked to wear his actors down by forcing them to do take after take for superfluous scenes, and that he was some sort of like cruel megalomaniac, which I don't agree with. The more interesting fact is that he shot this movie for 400 days and delivered it under budget. Now, how is that possible? The reason is that Kubrick was an indie guy at heart. He shot with a small crew. He maximized every dollar that he had. He bought time because for him, the time to craft something special was what he valued above all else. And for anyone who was on board with that mission, they had an incredibly fulfilling work experience on this film. Now, let's talk about the secret symbols. We got to talk about it. Does Kubrick fill his movies with secret symbols? The star means this, and the Christmas tree means that, and the rainbow means this. I got to be honest with you. These conversations are fun in your older brother's bedroom at 2 a.m., passing the bong and listening to Dark Side. But real artists do not go through the process of writing, developing, casting, and financing movies just to make glorified cereal box puzzles with a decoder ring. He was aware of his public persona. So what if, instead of creating a secret code to crack, Kubrick was instead exploring the fact that when faced with the horrifying complexities of the modern world, most people would prefer to choose a conspiracy or a puzzle because they're in fact more comforting than the horrifying truth. You know, 1999 saw the release of a lot of films that were dealing with the anxiety of the new millennium. two of which, much like Eyes Wide Shut, have gone on to be co-opted by the modern internet conspiracy culture. Of course, I'm talking about The Matrix and Fight Club. Now, of course, those two films framed these 21st century tensions in terms of a battle of good versus evil, which frankly leaves them susceptible to being co-opted by fascist ideology. Why I think Eyes Wide Shut stands as the most prescient film of the late 90s is that it resists the temptation of framing these anxieties around good versus evil and remains ambiguous. And what this movie has to teach us is that, in fact, the only real conspiracy is the fact that we want a conspiracy to exist in the first place. I will be back after the film to open up an audience discussion. We'll see what comes out of that. But in the meantime, please sit back, relax, and enjoy Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Do you feel the Christmas spirit? Do you feel the Christmas spirit? I know I do. My God. God, that was a beautiful fucking movie. Holy shit, that restoration looks amazing. Oh my God. Oh, well, if you have to head out, it is late. I hope you get home safe. Please come back, as we will be coming back in January and playing Fargo. I believe that's January 15th, so please look out for that. For those of you who are sticking around for the audience discussion, we start this the same way after every show, with a little thing that we call Letterboxd reviews. We go to the good people of Letterboxd to get the juices flowing. Okay, 5 stars and a heart. So Ziegler scheduled his big Christmas bash one day before the big orgy? Was he being obnoxious, or did he just figure, well, everyone's going to be in town anyway, so I might as well? Half a star, Eyes Wide Shit. That was for Rob Reiner. Rest in peace. A Spinal Tap reference. Thank you. Okay, 2 stars. Vaginas are incredibly scary, and the elite are even scarier because they make rituals out of it. Fidelities, fantasies, and fucking. Kubrick's empty aesthetic hand job, very fitting into his career, too banal to be killed over, though. God. Okay, 5 stars and a heart. Me, hi, how are you? Tom Cruise. I'm actually a doctor, so you should let me join your cult. Me, I don't know, Tom Cruise. Okay, but I'm a doctor. Here's my license. Half a star. Genuinely one of the worst movies I've seen in my life. Made no sense whatsoever. Dragged, and that whore had an ugly-ass Christmas tree. Oh, I know. You got a rag on the Christmas tree? She was doing her best in her small apartment. God, terrible take. Okay, half a star, slop movie, just naked people and nothing happening at all. Kubrick has no good movies, and this is garbage. Trash movie, and Tom Cruise can't act. I, however, did not finish this movie because it is garbage and full of porn. Dude, that's a wild review. Okay, last one. Half a star. Nobody in this movie made any sense to me. I enjoyed Alan Cumming, though. Can the pianist maybe play some different notes, for the love of God? Oh, man. Okay, let's get things started. The question I always ask is, do we have any instant reactions, whether you've seen the movie before, whether you haven't seen the movie before, just any sort of instant thoughts going through your mind that you'd like to share? Is anyone feeling brave? Yes, down in front.
The piano is half the dialogue, and the guy doesn't even know one chord.
More piano hatred from down front here. Anybody else? Yes, in the back here, coming back to you. Yeah, what you got?
Simply, whoa. I heard that this was going to be more talkative, so just very surprised, but enjoyable.
Oh, no, you thought it was going to be more talkative than it was?
Yes.
A movie that was mostly people talking in rooms.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know.
Okay, hey, I love it. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Yes, down here.
I think consequences like this should happen to any man who tries to cheat on Nicole Kidman.
Thank you. Thank you for that take. Thank you for that take. But, somehow heartbreak does feel good in a place like this. So, now what did we think of Bill? What did we think of Bill? I always like to talk about the protagonist whenever we're talking about a film. Do we have any instant Bill takes? Did we like him? Did we dislike him? What did we think of old Bill here?
I said, did you know he's a doctor?
I did not know he was a doctor. Did he have some sort of license that he could carry?
Right here.
Yes. Bill is a doctor. That I definitely think that about Bill as well. Anybody else got any Bill thoughts? Do we think that Bill is a particularly intelligent character? He's a doctor. But
I think Bill represented artifice.
Say that again?
I think Bill represented artifice.
I love where you're going with this. What can you...
He symbolized, he's the one who stuck out medical school. He's the one who is completely asexual in the exam room. He's the one who, has pretensions to all of these noble ideals. And the story to me was, what do you do when you have built this edifice that you inhabit, and then you're confronted with the banality and the grossness, and you think that you're riding through it, you're riding over it. You go into the hooker's apartment, and then you take her pastries, and you're so invested in your own goodness that when you're faced with the reality that your wife wanted to fuck a naval officer, you lose it. It's like, that couldn't be my wife. So that's my short take.
I love that. I mean, I'll get right to you. I mean, is it not hilarious that, and I think Kubrick absolutely thought this was so fucking funny, that here's this guy who, you're absolutely right, has this sort of ego conception of himself, then his faithful wife tells him about fantasizing about a guy one time, and he melts down. That is insane and a hilarious inciting incident to this story. Yes?
Kind of building off that, I think it's incredible, more so now than even when it came out, that Tom Cruise is playing this guy, because you would see a guy like Tom Cruise walk into any scene of a movie like this, and you would expect him to just walk all over everybody there, like he's going to be the master of every room he's in, and then he walks into that fucked up palace like halfway through the movie, and he's just completely like not submissive for the rest of the film, but he's just like completely fear-struck for the rest of it. And it's kind of a play on what you would expect from a guy like him in this type of movie, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, coming right here.
I just kind of want to challenge the idea that he's like completely asexual in the exam room. I don't think he's a reliable narrator, and he said that himself, but when he was checking that lady's heart rate, she had her everything out, like completely under. You don't need to do that just for a stethoscope. So I think that's just kind of his own idea he has of himself, and I just don't think he's a reliable narrator of the story, even though it's through his eyes.
Yeah, interesting take. I mean, I think Bill is sort of dripping with ego. So whatever he's up to is sort of, with a story he tells himself about himself. And frankly, the entire narrative is challenging that story that he tells himself. One thing that I loved watching this movie in a packed house, and is so often the byproduct of watching a movie in the packed house. I mean, like, I screened a 35 millimeter print of Harakiri, if any of you are familiar with that film, a Japanese samurai's film. Long, very serious. And it got laughs in a room full of people. And I was so blown away by the laughs that Harakiri was getting. Now, I had kind of expected this movie to get laughs in a crowd, but I was not expecting to the degree it was getting laughs. Did anybody else have this experience? Did anyone else want to comment on the comedy that emerged from this movie watching with a group of people? Yes. Love the dedication of the mask, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I thought it would be more surreal to watch it with the mask, and I just got very comfortable in it. I think in a way it's sort of a meta parody of like a Tom Cruise Hollywood movie. You think he's this hero and he's gonna he's like this infallible hero who's gonna solve the mystery, but by the kind of the middle of it, you realize he's kind of incompetent. And I think that sort of his credentialism is funny. I mean, it's played to a very absurd level.
Yeah, the best definition of comedy I ever got from an acting teacher was that comedy is the result of a shameless pursuit of an objective. And throughout the scenes, as Bill is trying to justify his life and justify his choices to all these people around him, he crosses that boundary into shamelessness, and thus comedy results. Did I see hand up? Yeah.
Kind of building on that and what I said before, it was humorous to me purely because by more dialogue, I mean I expected more grandiosity, and the fact that he was just so, like someone else said, fearful and kind of, what is happening to my life, was somewhat amusing, and him going, I'm a doctor, I'm a serious person, I shouldn't be in this situation, was amusing.
Yeah, it's absolutely absurd. But I mean, you know, not yeah, I mean, to do the thing, aren't we all? Aren't we all absurd in our own little American bourgeois ways, going about our lives, trying to eke out our little piece of happiness when all of the happiness and comforts that we enjoy in our life today are built upon untold horrors that we benefit from and are blind to every single day. That is the prescience of this movie that I cannot escape. Now, as many of you probably know, this movie came out to very mixed reviews in 1999. It was sold as sort of this hypersexual erotic thriller, and people didn't know how to react to the movie as it came out. Does anybody, especially somebody who's seen it before, but it could be someone that's seeing it for the first time, anybody sort of see a resonance in this film that is almost more resonant today in 2025, almost 2026, than in 1999? Yes.
I will shamelessly admit that when I saw it, when it first came out, I think I was more looking for the good parts.
Would you care to elaborate?
I mean, it was promoted in that way, and it was kind of a phenomenon in that sense. And so it's like, okay, so what is the buzz here? What are they doing that's so outlandish that's creating all of this hype? And I saw it in a completely different light tonight. And, I think part of that's big screen makes a difference. It's more immersive. But at the time, I had no sense of anything except Nicole Kidman had a nice ass.
Wow. There is no denying. But no, I thank you for sharing that. I'm taking it you had a better experience this time around than the first time.
I feel I can speak slightly more intelligently. I mean, there was a story there, and I think in reacting to another comment, I tend to have reservations about overlaying an actor's persona onto a casting decision. I think that's very thin ice for a director, someone of Kubrick's nature. I think for him to use Tom Cruise because of what Tom Cruise represented, the whole Top Gun myth and everything. I don't like Tom Cruise, but I couldn't imagine anybody else playing that part.
I don't know. I think that Kubrick was he was always wary about working with star talent, and he didn't want people. He didn't want to have a sort of a power struggle. He wanted people to be bought into the mission. And so he was very hesitant about Tom Cruise joining this project. I do think that a little bit of Tom Cruise's persona, but particularly the way his persona can kind of be twisted into this sort of yuppie kind of try-hardness that was utilized to effect in the film. But I do want to jump around. Is anybody else thinking about that difference between when the film came out and now watching it 25, 26 years later? Yes.
One thing I think about is women's sexuality, and we think about Me Too, that was 10 or 15 years ago. In 1999, I think Monica Lewinsky and all of that had just happened, right? So I guess I'm thinking about like the woman's journey through all of this, and even filming decisions from back then. And one thing I just keep thinking about is if Tom Cruise's character had just listened to the women like throughout the movie, maybe he could have had a better journey. And also, it's weird that he doesn't have any consequences at the end of it. I mean, ultimately, his wife is like forgiving him and saying, okay, it was like just a dream. So I feel like from that perspective, not much has changed in terms of consequences for men making poor decisions sexually, if that makes sense. Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, there's certain the gender dynamics are absolutely at play in this film. I would, and this is not like a counterpoint, this is more like a sort of add-on, that I think that so much of this film can also only take place in a sort of post-feminist world where women are upwardly mobile, and that it's amazing that even going as far back to 1926 when this book was written, that a sort of forecasting of the limits of the male ego was already at play. And I think that's why Kubrick felt a sort of need to make this when he did. Was that so much of Bill's character and so much of the faults of Bill's character lie in his conception of himself and the sort of male ego sort of world he's built of his perfect little bourgeois doctor palace, and the limits of that. And I think it's absolutely I think Kubrick is challenging and laughing at that throughout the movie, even though it is a pretty male perspective heavy movie. Yeah, anybody else? Anybody? Yes, in the back here. I think this will be the last one. We'll wind it up after this. Yes, sir.
Hey, I just wanted to comment on how awesome the lighting was in this movie. I work in TV and film doing lighting and stuff, and I'm watching this and like trying to catch like how they're doing the lighting in the scenes, and you can watch it and see like all the practical things like lamps and sconces on the wall. They're all like nuclear hot on the screen, and you can tell a lot of the lighting's coming from practically motivated stuff on set. It's really the only like really overt lighting is like they keep using the blue through the windows and stuff, and you know obviously that looks cool. And then I'm just watching it, and it's like the indie ethos that you were talking about with Stanley Kubrick. I can see it here. The best people at this kind of stuff, they do it simply, and the lighting on set for this, just you can tell it's just super simple, and they probably paid like a lot of attention to how, you know, they used all the practical lighting on the set and stuff, because I mean you can tell they don't have like a lot of crazy backlights on people, and it's so easy nowadays to light things, like everything's like super smooth these days because all the lighting's extremely soft, and it makes it really easy, and it makes it hard to make a lot of mistakes. But you can tell there's just like moments in this where the lighting's just like so, you know, well, they really put a lot of thought into it. Like that last scene when they're two talking at the toy store, they have this like super hard lighting coming on them there. The guy walking around in the street tailing him in New York, the hot street lamps. Yes. You know, and people don't make a lot of lighting choices like this nowadays because it's really bold and it can come out bad. But in these instances, it's awesome. So I mean, it's just cool to see somebody do just really convicted lighting, and it's just great. Like I said, the best people do it simply, and you can tell this stuff is like simple but awesome.
Yes, dude. I'm so glad you brought this up. I'm gonna get real nerdy real quick, and then we'll wrap this thing up because I know it's getting late. I'm so glad you brought this up because it gets even fucking crazier, dude. So this movie, yes, it's entirely lit by practicals. It's entirely, and for anyone who doesn't understand what that term is, it's entirely lit by lamps and lights that actually appear in the scene, not from like fake stage lights that are mounted overhead. Now, Kubrick famously shot Barry Lyndon using all natural candlelight. He got these special Zeiss lenses that had been built for NASA that were for super low light in order to film that film. He had those lenses personally. He owned those lenses. However, he did not use the ultra low light lenses for this movie. He instead used a different lens kit, but that wasn't quite as fast. What he did to achieve the incredible lighting and sort of like the haloed blooms around the light is he underexposed the film, and then because he processed the film himself, he processed it. So the film soaked in the bath longer than it was supposed to go. And the processing, the film processing plant was like bro, don't do this. Like, you're going to ruin your movie. But very quickly after they got the dailies back, they realized this Kubrick guy like actually knows what he's doing. The risk being is that you can not only blow out your highlights, but you can really mess with the blacks in your image. You can add a lot of noise to them. You saw this beautiful grainy noise in the shadows of the film, but it was a really light touch. It was like really perfect, and yet the black of the color was this wonderful, saturated, deep, dark color that gave this wonderful contrast. That was all due to Kubrick's expert handling of the actual film stock and messing with the even exposing or the development process in the lab, which is like just a detail that I think is so incredible. And it was something that was ruined in the previous Warner Brothers home video release. And that is what has been restored tonight. Guys, I want to thank you all so much for coming out to another Behind the Slate Presents. Please come back in January as we will be playing Fargo. You can follow us at Behind the Slate Pod on Instagram and TikTok to see interviews and other fun stuff. And I hope to see you all soon. Thank you so much.